Hello, welcome to Black Men Speak. It's August, and this is, of course, one of my favorite times of the year because it's my birthday month. And my name is Keith Dent, and you are listening to Black Men Speak. And so it's a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. And we have a great show today, and we have a great guest, and I can't really wait to get to hear his story and to talk to him. And and his name is Tyrese Allyene Davis. But before we get into that, there's just some things I want to kind of highlight and give you a backstory on his life and the reason why he's here today. Um, so, but before that, according to the American Community Survey data, 14% of Black Americans have a disability, compared with 12.6% of the overall population. So that means 36% of disabled Black Americans live in 36% of disabled Black Americans live in poverty, compared with 26% of all disabled Americans. Disabled Black people often have to battle harder to get correct diagnoses and services. This is especially true for individual disabilities such as autism, which educators are more likely to dismiss as behavior issues in Black children than in white ones. Black people with disabilities are especially likely to have issues with police officers who can misinterpret their behavior, such as a deaf person who keeps walking when told to stop as a threat. When law enforcement assumes a Black person's failure to comply is because of aggression rather than a disability. The consequences can be deadly. Black Americans in general are 2.5 times as likely as white Americans to be killed by a police officer. Now, and these are just things that we just may not know in what happens, because we're all kind of deal with our own things, our own issues. But just in 1973, Congress passed the Rehabilitation Act. Section 504 mandated equal opportunity for employment and prohibited discrimination against disabled by any entity that received federal funds. But in 1977, disability rights activists staged protests across the country to push the government to act, including 4-week sit-in at a San Francisco office of the University Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. So I wanted to bring that up because sometimes we can be a little callous and overlook people because we're so busy dealing with our own stuff. But for when you're a person of color and disabled, not only are they dealing with being a person of color, but also their disability, and at times can be very isolating, because we may not necessarily get support, or not necessarily ask and talk about what an individual may be going through. So, in one such person that kind of dealt with that was my guest today, Tyrese Allyene Davis. And we share something because we're both preemies. I was born, I guess, 3 months premature, and he was born just at 23 weeks. We were both wearing 1 pound. And so when I heard that, I was so excited. I was like, oh, we have something in common. But, and so he's also has cerebral palsy. And so how I found out about him and his story, I have to get a shout out to Adetoro Makinde, because she actually did 2 documentaries. She did a documentary on him when he was 12 years old or 13. And then around, 10 years later, did a documentary on him called In Mourning. And we're going to talk about that today. What was he mourning about? What were some of the challenges that he was going through? And things that we should know that may help us when we see an individual that may be, disabled. I know there's other words that can be used, but I really, to kind of set the scene for today in our today's discussion, I'm going to show you a brief clip of where he was at 12. And then I'll show you kind of the like a 30-second trailer of the In Mourning. Okay.
When I look back at this film 10, 20 years down the road, I want them to all realize that you can do anything you put your mind to, no matter what. Don't let anything stop you. You have the determination and mindset that normal people don't have. You need to be grounded, and you need to have this mindset that nobody can take away from you. And you need to know what you want to do, and you can't let anybody change that.
Okay. And
as a black man, as a black disabled man, as a member of the disabled community, as a social outcast, I too wonder, where will the fairness in humanity come? When will the fairness and humanity be there? When will I wake up and feel equal as my counterparts?
Tyrese, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Keith. I'm very honored to be here.
So before we kind of get into the documentary and just the mindset of where you were at that time, for those of us that are watching, let us know who you are. Who is Tyrese Allyene Davis?
I am Tyrese Allyene Davis, 24 years old, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Just recently graduated from New York University with a bachelor's degree in creative writing. I'm a public speaker, I'm a mentor, and I'm just a person who likes to share knowledge and a positive message with the world.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So, um, in Mourning, which is the name of the documentary, what give me kind of a? I mean, when we saw the clip, but give me a brief synopsis of how it actually came about.
In the Wake of Mourning came about from me actually doing an assignment that stemmed from a James Baldwin film called I Am Not Your Negro, and the film was also a book as well. Um, and I felt so emotionally moved after viewing the Netflix film that I felt like I need to just, unload all the heavy pressure I was feeling in my body and my mind and my heart and my soul, and put it someplace where, I could go back to it, or I could, have evidence of it. So I had submitted the recording originally as a homework assignment, but then I was like, let me just post it somewhere publicly so I could like it could feel free from my phone, because I felt like it needed to be put somewhere. And then I decided on Facebook because I figured nobody ever checks Facebook, so it would be safe there.
Okay.
It would be safe there. And sure enough, a couple months later, Adetoro actually messaged me, checking up on me after hearing the audio, and after speaking for a couple of days, she was like, "I don't know what you're doing later on this summer, but we have to put a visual to this, a gripping and emotionally charged audio, because people need to hear this message." And lo and behold, Awake in the Morning was born.
Yeah, in the Wake of Mourning, I actually misspoke. So, thank you for that. And it was really, yes, and I'm glad she did. The actual visual um, video actually really captured your message in a fantastic way. So, So let's go back um, to age 12 when Adetoro first filmed you. What was your outlook on life back then?
Um, I think my outlook on life was uh, the outlook of any middle schooler or preteen. You know, very naive, very
Mm,
hopeful in the goodness of humanity. You know, this is what the next 10 years of my life is gonna look like. I have everything planned out. I'm gonna go to this school. I'm gonna get this job, and build the career that I want. And it's funny that I look back on that now, and relatively none of that plan actually happened. But I'm right where I was meant to be, so I'm grateful for the journey.
okay, because I mean that's a pretty great outlook. Because I know dealing with middle schoolers now, they don't have as much as positive outlook nowadays. So the fact that you were there, it really speaks volumes.
Um, and I attribute that, Keith, to my upbringing. I come from a strong black family. I don't know if my mom is watching this, but my mom Felicia Allyene, my brother Tyrell, my aunt Hazel, my aunt Kim. I have a very solid core of family who was there to guide me and make sure I was, going to be a productive member of society. It was never about, oh, Tyrese can't do this or Tyrese can't do that. It's Tyrese is gonna do everything he wants to do. We just have to figure out how he's gonna do it in his own way. So they never allowed me to use my disability or any obstacle as a crutch from stopping my dreams or any goals I wanted to achieve. And they've kept me humble and grounded. And I think my humility has allowed me to open many doors, and I'm grateful for my family because without them, I wouldn't be Tyrese.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Shout out to them, and they actually, they actually considered you the captain of the team as well.
Yes. um Everybody kind of like rallies around me. I'm one person who always has something good to say. I'm able to build a morale around the family back up when we're going through tough times, and I just love every one of my family members dearly.
Okay, great. And so just watching the video, said you consider yourself naive at the time. So next question really is, when did you when did your kind of emotions or your outlook on life start to change or get a little bit more, and I hate to use this word, but get a little bit more jaded or cynical?
As soon as I got out of high school, entering in college, and I saw the constant media coverage of, like, Black death and, Black community suffrage. It's like it really kicked into gear. And not that I didn't pay attention to it all throughout high school, but especially like in my junior, senior year of high school going into college, and seeing the impact of police brutality and violence on communities, like the one that I'm a member of. It just really ripped my heart, and it was like
Hmm.
I need to go from thinking that I'm a victim to being an activist and trying to speak out on these issues in any way, shape, or form. I feel like God put a pen in my hand for a reason, and it's for those reasons that I need to be the best advocate and voice I can be.
Hmm. Hmm. And so what were some of the ways that you exerted some of your activism? Was there anything particularly that you wrote or spoke about it? Because I know you said you're a public speaker, so any of those that you did to try to get the attention of what was going on at the time?
Um, I remember when I was in high school, I had just started my poetry journey, and I used to have this notebook in high school where I used to write like ideas on poems, and then like I remember the Eric Gardner incident, and I remember writing a poem, and I was like, even though I'm upset, it feels good to get this anger on the page and do something creative with it. And then when I got to NYU, I was able to join a poetry club, and we would have meets and talk about social issues. So it was great to build a community around language and art, and find people who love expressing themselves just as much as I do. But NYU is also a great place for the sharing and spread of knowledge. So I was learning just as much as other people were learning, and it just felt great to feel like I was doing something right with my voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. I'm glad you were able to capture that. So what I thought was quite interesting is that you in the documentary you mentioned that we as a collective people need to decide the type of America that we want to live in. So what do you feel is the type of America that we have right now?
I feel like it is a very one-sided America. We have the Constitution, and we say that everybody's governed and protected under a certain body of laws. But then when you turn on the news and you look at court proceedings, and then you look at like statistics on juries and everything else, it points in another direction. So if we're gonna have a land that is governed by certain laws, or a body of judges or courts that are that have the duty of upholding a certain standard of just law, then it needs to be clear across the board. It can't be okay. He gets away on for this type of charge because he was having a bad day. When it was, if it's a person of color, they would chastise the individual or relatively throw them under the jail. And they wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even have a chance to see the light of day. So I think in a perfect world, these laws need to be reevaluated, and it needs to be more clear cut across the board of how we're gonna uphold punishment and law.
Right, right. Absolutely. That's very poignant. And so do you think so I know that's perfect, but what do you think we'll get to that point at some
To be completely honest with you, Keith, and I
Mhm.
say this with everything in my heart, I don't think that day will ever come.
Oh, really? That's how you feel?
I think because America and this country has had such a deep history with slavery, and the powers that be have been controlling a lot of our narrative for so long that we're never going to be able to relinquish that power. But I think we have a better platform to express our grief now. um 15, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, it was non-existent to log on to, Facebook or YouTube and see a type of web show like this that, had a type of guest like myself and
Mhm.
yourself talking about, issues that need to be, dealt with in our communities. But I think, even though we never have that power back, I think we have the platform and more resources.
Okay. Yeah,
And,
we actually go ahead.
and another beautiful thing, sorry to cut you off,
That's okay.
um, but I really love the movement with black individuals in the spaces of tech and media, because we have a lot more app developers of color and tech people of color that can build our own platforms and build apps for people of our communities and skin colors, and not have to rely on the other four or five common social media platforms that we've been having, who are known to censor some content, or some important conversations that need to be had.
Okay. And it sounds from what I'm hearing, um a lot of what you're saying was inspired by James Baldwin. I am not your Negro.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about that. Was that video the first time you had basic heard some of his rhetoric or some of his work? Yeah, explain to me how you came about watching that and why it impacted you so deeply.
My relationship with James Baldwin's work actually started the summer before I started at NYU. The scholarship program that I was formerly a part of had required us to read an updated version of his famous novel, The Fire Next Time. But the novel that I read at the time was called The Fire This Time, and it was focusing on
Mm.
current. It was focusing on current issues of the decade instead of older issues that Mr. Baldwin had previously spoke about. So then, after reading the updated version, I went back in the archives and I was like, "This is one of the most eloquently courageous men and artists that I've ever read, or had the beauty of consuming his art." And then I just went into a big deep dive and just like dissected like all of his books and like really got a feel for who he was, not only as an artist but as a man. And then through learning about him, I started to find out more about like Nikki Giovanni and Angela Davis, and just like building my knowledge of prominent Black leaders.
Okay. Well, yeah, it sounds like you've NYU taught you well. You started you started really using those creative research skills to work and putting them to work.
Absolutely.
Okay. Um, what was I going to ask you? And so, yes, and so the fire this time, I don't think I've heard of that book. So, what were some of the issues that they were tackled, and was there some similarities between the two books?
They were a big similarity was the racial disparity in America that's still prevalent to today. Um, just like they tackled religion, just like Mr. Baldwin's book did. But one issue that I remember that the fire next time tackled was like the pipeline to prison, and like all the inner
Mm,
workings of how America is just sacrificing Black bodies to a corporate prison system that doesn't fight for them and their justice and their family at the end of the day. So that hit me in the face because
mhm,
shortly after I did my deep dive into James Baldwin, I stumbled upon Michelle Alexander's the New Jim Crow. And when I read the New Jim Crow, I was like, okay, now I need to be an activist. I have to do something about this now.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so it was a lot of some of the like shared views on religion, and just the values of Black bodies in Baldwin's America at the time and the current America in the fire next time. So it was just a overall feeling of impending doom on the Black community, and like both authors, both Baldwin and the individual who wrote the updated version, I'm escaping her name is escaping me, but they were like, what can we do about this since it's been here for so long and so many generations.
okay,
um so
that's
it kind of left a certain social responsibility up to the reader. Like this is what Baldwin was dealing with in the old version. This is what I present to you in the new version. What are you going to do about it now, Tyrese?
mhm. And what are some of the ways you've used your platform to help speak out against some of the things that you're feeling, and what's been the overall response to your activism?
Um, I when I was at NYU a couple of times a week, a couple of friends and I used to get together and just have conversations. It wasn't like a planned group, it wasn't a planned club, but just talking with the freshmen or seniors that we looked up to about like the world we live in, and we were all just scared. And every Wednesday night, I used to enjoy like meeting in the library and getting a chance to talk about whatever was going on in the news or whatever was said in the media or music or just any facet or form of life that we felt bogged down by. We could come to the library on Wednesday nights and just talk about things.
Mhm, mhm. And did you feel a sense? Because I know one of the things you had mentioned um, was the fact that of course, you were during the pandemic, you felt isolated because of, and so talk about that. What was what was the isolation like, being the fact that you were at school at the time?
Okay, so I'm a person with a disability. So when my uh, campus had shut down. Um, I was stationary on campus because, I'm a person that comes with not only a motorized wheelchair, but I have other equipment that assists me in my daily life that would have been hard for me to move back and forth from Brooklyn to Manhattan. So I was stationary on campus for my safety. And, I'm a part of a lot of like message groups via text and other social clubs and groups, and people were just saying goodbye without any indication of to where any indication as to if campus was ever going to be normal. So I was seeing friends pack up and go back home. Some friends even transferred to other colleges because they couldn't deal with the city. So like all my friends and my support network was just dispersed, and it was to add on to what was already going on. This was around the time of my 21st birthday. So I had a celebration planned. I had a concrete idea of how I wanted to bring in, this big chapter of my life, and then it just got
Mhm.
got dismantled thanks to COVID-19. So I was really just questioning my existence, like, like, what am I about to go into, and how am I expected to still do work and still be a productive person in academia with all these obstacles in front of me without any clear path to an exit.
Mm-hmm. And so, thank you for sharing that, because it really captures just how isolating COVID was, no matter who you are, but especially for you where you relied on a social network and as support for your daily living. And so, what would you say helped you get out of that?
Um, what helped me get out of that is that was the time where I started um I started just trying to create like a a a a, a plan to free my mind. So like I would go and try to find books in the library because I knew some people that worked in the library, and even though campus was closed, I was able to still get into the library. That's why networking is so valuable.
Oh,
So
okay, you had the hookup.
yes, yes. So I would just spend hours in the library just reading and trying to, like, find new knowledge, and like try to not stay so stagnant. um, so I was just trying to like pour into my creative writing at the
Mhm.
time too, and this was around the time where the novel that I'm working on currently was born. My novel idea was actually born in the pandemic, and I used that whole chunk of time to really just draft the novel and start making characters that were real life and like dealing with social issues. So I really viewed the pandemic as a time to like recharge and reflect and like give myself new tools to be a better Tyrese.
Oh, okay, okay, that's fantastic. And so, um, so since you did read a lot, what are some? Give me some of your. What are your favorite books?
Um, my favorite books, I would say number one is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I would say All About Love by Bell Hooks. I'm a big Bell Hooks fan.
Okay.
Um, what else do I like? I like Giovanni's Room. Giovanni's Room by Baldwin was a big one. Um, I like a couple of Langston Hughes collections of poems. Um, I like there's another scholar named Major Jackson. He's a great poet. He teaches at Vanderbilt. Um, he uh he has like this anthology of like black poems that he published throughout his tenure while he was in his teaching career, and it just spoke to me as a fellow black man. Then, how can I forget Terrence Hayes?
Oh, okay.
Terrence Hayes, he had this collection of poems called The New American Sonnet, which is like takes the old like the standard rules of an English sonnet or an Irish sonnet and makes it like more modern and urban. So I was just like, how can I forget he sorry, I just get
It's
excited
okay.
when
I
I
hear you.
there's this other book called Heavy. Anybody looking for a good book, you have to check out Heavy. Heavy by this author named Kiyase Layman.
Okay.
Um, it's a memoir about how he grew up in the South and his mom taught at Jackson State, and he's seeing the racial divide as a young teen in the South, in the '90s and late '80s,
Okay.
and it just wrecks him throughout the book. And then he, at the tail end of the book, he becomes the adjunct professor at Jackson State, like his mom, and he's just reliving his experiences as a teacher, and so uh, all of those authors, uh, from Zora Neale Hurston as well,
Okay.
Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, like I really just use that time to like get deep get deep rooted in black activism and my black culture, and I just had a new love for my people and love for art that I never looked at art in that way at that time before, because I was never pushed to. But because I was isolated and because I didn't have anything tangible to grab on to give me hope, like I just embodied every text and all the words and really felt something in my spirit.
Okay, great. And just to let you know, because your boy Deshaun wanted to give you a shout out. So he's proud of you, and he just said continued blessings on your works and endeavors. So I wanted to just let
Hey,
you know.
hey, D, thank you so much.
So that's great. So before I get to that, just to keep it light, you had asked me a question about who before we got started who my favorite hip hop artists were. Well, then you said who was I listening to when I was in college? So I gave, of course, it's a little bit farther back. So who are some of your favorite hip hop artists?
Okay, if anybody wants to know who Tyrese Allyene Davis is without meeting him, and I could only give you an album to listen to, you have to listen to Good Kid, Mad City from front to back by Kendrick Lamar. That whole album is Tyrese Allyene Davis, and I would say 2014 Forest Hills Drive by J. Cole. Those two
Okay.
albums embody who I am. Um, but to answer your question, straightforwardly, my top three favorite artists are ooh ooh. See, I could go a lot of different ways with this, but I'll just keep it general.
Okay.
I I'm a big MF Doom fan. I love all things MF Doom. He he
Okay.
does. He doesn't get a lot of recognition, because he's underground and he never like had a major label debut. Um,
Gotcha. Okay.
but I love Kendrick because Kendrick his albums are like anthologies. It's like you're reading a book, or he's like a linguistical Martin Scorsese. Like
Oh wow. Okay.
everything he makes is just so like sonically appealing and it's so vivid. So MF Doom, Kendrick Lamar, and then I would have to say uh it's a toss up between Biggie and Jay-Z.
Okay. Toss up. And
For
that's a pretty tough. That's a toss up there. I can see you. Depends on what day it is. But just to
yes,
kind of but to go back then. So you said Kendrick Lamar's album, and then J Cole. Were you, or they basically captured the essence of who you are, or at the time. So what was it about those albums that captured your spirit?
because those albums, 2014 Forest Hills Drive and Good Kid, Mad City, focus on youth, and I'm a young man, just like they were young men making those albums, and the contents of those albums are just young people trying to find their bearings in life, seeing all this violence, having all these questions, but still realizing, hey, I have the platform to change things.
Okay. And that is true. We do have the platform to change things, and we just have to be courageous. And I think you are courageous to speak out against injustice or things that you want. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today, because you are courageous, just of what you go through on a daily basis. But you, as you have a saying, and I haven't mentioned it, but there's no such thing as a bad day. It's just that some days are more challenging than others. And so
Yes.
I'm sure that's the mantra of how you live.
Absolutely, because everything it's all about it. There's a saying that life is like um 20% what happens to you and 90% or 80% how you deal with it.
Hmm.
So like I try to always be appreciative of where I am in life, because there's a lot of people that are living that don't have the opportunities or support that I have. So I try to be grounded and stay humble and really realize the avenues that I'm able to explore and the communities that I'm able to bridge together with my voice and my public speaking or my writing. So when I am having those bad days, I rely on my support system, and they're able to remind me, of who I am, why I've come this far, how I've come this far, and how much further I have to go. So I try to never look at anything as too bad or too good. I just like to take life one step at a time and see how everything unfolds. Because every corner in our life, no matter whether it's good or bad, it makes us better in some sort of way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so we both came in the world at deficits, and we've been able to break those glass ceilings and really solidify ourselves and our dreams. And I have no plan on stopping or letting anything in the future get in the way of me living my best life. And I hope uh, as I grow in my writing and my activism that I'm able to bring a lot more people with me along this journey.
And I think you will. I think you will, because you are inspiring. And one thing is that you do is you read. Reading is fundamental, so you'll be able to draw upon past scholars, just people that inspire you, and use those words to help a new generation or your generation. So I applaud you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So I usually ask one question, but I'm going to ask it kind of in a different way. um what what do you look forward what are you looking forward to most in this next chapter of your life?
Um, being that I'm a recent college graduate, I'm looking forward to building my career, getting my first job, and really entering the workforce. Um, Also, I'm excited for this novel to be published in the near future. I'm excited to just grow as a young man. This summer, I've started mentoring high school students in special education, teaching them how to
Mm.
write, teaching them how to write and write English narratives and build their professional portfolios. And I've been doing it for 6 weeks, almost 6 weeks now, and
Okay.
it's been the most exciting, patient, grueling 6 weeks. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it teaches me, how important it is to give back to my community. Because just like I'm teaching my students, you can't let anybody dictate your dream. If you believe in something, no matter what learning disabilities you may have, no matter what physical disabilities you have, there is help and there is a community, and you don't have to do it alone. And I am here to help you and guide you as best as I can.
Oh, that's awesome. So you see, now I have to ask another question. What's because you said it was grueling. Well, so what made it grueling? And then two, what has been the most inspiring story that you could share within these past 6 weeks that you
It's
can?
it's grueling because um I I see through the students how the educational system in America really underserves parents and students with disabilities and
Mm,
intellectual difficulties. These are bright minds, and all of my students, I love them dearly. But I talk to my coworkers in our weekly staff meetings, and I say like, if the DOE and the bodies that govern the educational system that we have in America would just pour a little bit more extra time into these students, daily lives and educational journeys, they would be so much further than what they already are. I feel like a lot of the educational system just like allows them to do the bare minimum without showing them
mm,
you can achieve more. I don't know if it's to keep certain numbers the way they are. I don't know if it's to keep a certain quota of special education staff in a certain place, but I feel like all students in special education shouldn't be limited by a teacher telling them, no, college is not for you, or you can't get that job, or why would you take,
mm,
why would you take this offer, or why would you go to that school? Like, no, nobody should limit somebody that's not their child.
mm. Wow. And then that inspiring story. You have one you could share?
Um, I can share one from this past week. Um,
Okay.
I was working with a student, and I will not mention any names, of course, for confidentiality. But
Right. Right.
he was really struggling with telling a part of his story. And then he because he was never taught how to like structure his writing properly. So like this was his first introduction into writing at an advanced level. So I had given him a prompt, and like he had struggled with it for a couple of days. So then when I start class one morning, I just see this light go off in his eyes when he's writing, and I'm like, he's like, I finally know how to answer it. And then he started to like relate the question to him, and his life and his strength. And I was like, see, that's how you do writing when you get like presented with the hard question. Try to relate it best to your life as much as you can. So
Mhm.
through those small exercises, he was able to like correctly explain everything that was on his mind, and his story and his narrative that he's writing is turning out very great, and I'm proud of all of them. And it's the little wins that get me up in the morning and get me ready to teach the kids. It's not like what can they do at the end of the program, is what can they do tomorrow that makes their day better, or like when they finally find that word they've been looking up in the dictionary for 2 3 days, and they finally get it. Like just seeing the enthusiasm that I had when I first picked up my pen, that's what keeps me going with the kids. And I will definitely be back with them next summer, because I'm very proud of all of them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I don't know about you, but I do kind of hear future teacher professor up in there. And
Yes, I, I am not limiting myself to any teaching. I feel like being a teacher is what I was meant to do, because being a person with a disability, you have to have a level of empathy and understanding and patience that normal people or able-bodied people don't have. So I feel like I have that empathic knowledge to reach down and pull, as many beautiful, bright, gifted kids as I can up. So I'm very excited about the possible journey and optimistic about the future. Maybe you'll see me at at a college campus next.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for this, Tyrese. I have to say this was a wonderful experience, and for those of you that are listening, this is the beauty of why I do this. Um, like I said, this podcast is called Black Men Speak, and it's highlighting ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things, and Tyrese is one of those people. So I'm just blessed that I've had the opportunity to interview him today, and I really look forward to what's going to happen in the future, especially your novel. So I'm definitely will stay in touch, and when the novel is almost done, let me know, and then we'll have you back on again because I can't wait to hear what this novel is about.
I can give you a brief synopsis if you would like.
Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Um, it is based in Florida, and it is about a main character named Vanessa, who is a very prominent softball pitcher, and she is gearing up to play college softball. But then, in the summer before her senior year of high school, she contacts melanoma skin cancer, and so throughout the book, she's dealing with her choice of fighting to save her athletic career because her melanoma is progressive, or fighting to save her life. And she's also a member of the LGBTQ plus community, so she's also dealing with an identity crisis, and it's like an internal war. So she has the physical war with her body, and then the internal war with her emotions. And the novel is just so multi-layered that I can't wait for you guys to see the finished product.
Yeah, it sounds multi-layered already. Wow, I can't wait. I can't wait to read it and definitely have you back on again to kind of talk about some of that. So, Tyrese, thank you for being on today, and you can hold on after we sign off.
Absolutely. Thank you for everyone. Thank you, Keith, for having me, and I look forward to possibly coming back.
Thank you. This is Black Men Speak, and we'll see you soon.